All right, why don't we get started? Sure. So, a couple of announcements before we start. Becky Yeager, who's with us, is the voter registration coordinator or chair of the VR committee for the DEC. And we need volunteers. And someone asked me if club members might want to volunteer outside the Green Market downtown, motor vehicles. We are so far behind on getting people registered and getting people to renew their vote by mail. We don't even know, we're not going to know until January who has renewed their vote by mail. So we need to get going. And if you're interested, just shoot me an email. We're going to try to get Becky to train people. I don't know when there are sessions set up, but you obviously need to be trained before you can go out. That's the big announcement. Another, I don't know how many people knew Marjo Beckman. I think she was about 98 the last time I looked, and Bob Avarak told me he saw she just passed away yesterday. So she was a stalwart in the Democratic Party. And I guess let's start right away. We have some other speakers, but Erica is being kind enough to give us her time tonight, and I think everybody wants to hear from her. She's the school board member for Palm Beach County from District 4, which covers where I live in Delray Beach, and I think District 4 and District 7 are the two districts that run through Delray Beach. And as I don't have to tell anyone that she and the rest of the school board and all of the teachers in Florida are facing some real issues. So she's going to talk about the priorities for the school board in the coming year. So.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate it. And thank you all for having me here today. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, it's fine. Let me just switch this so that the speaker comes. There you go. Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about our legislative priorities. So I'll talk about that. I'll mention a little bit about the deregulation bill and a little bit about what's going on federally, because that's really important, especially for Democrats and what's been going on. So I'll talk about those items. How long do I have, Michael? I don't want to go over your time.
Long as you want.
You're sweet. Okay, so I know this isn't a perfect setup.
Actually, my cousin said that their workmen are threatened to come back in at 8:30. When he came here, there were people poking into the ceiling. But,
and the rest of it.
Well, I will talk as long as you guys want about basically anything you're interested in. I just want to make sure that this opportunity, even though we're on Zoom, if anybody has any questions for me, you don't have to restrict it to the things I'm talking about. If there's anything at all that you're interested in or concerned about, please feel free, to just jump in or speak up. I'm right here and I really want to hear from you all. I will say I've been on the school board now as of this week, 9 years. It has been an amazing journey. I'm very, very glad that I've gotten to do it. And I have to say that just coming as a Democrat to this Democratic club and talking about kind of the politics of the state of Florida, one of the things that has been so beneficial for us in Palm Beach County, I think for every human in Palm Beach County, is that the school board has really stayed strong during these tough times. We haven't lost any of our members, even though there were some really big challenges last year. Next year, we have 3 open seats. 3 open seats. So we've got North County, which is Barbara McQuinn, currently is not running again. Officially, Alexandria has not declared either direction, but we're kind of thinking she might not run, but I'm not sure. She hasn't told me that personally. So that's the center of Green Acres kind of area. And then Frank Barbieri is definitely not running. Frank has a person in that seat who's interested in doing it, who is a mom and teacher, and she lives in Boca. I'm not totally sure if anybody else is running in that seat yet, but she is a Democrat, which is good. And so we're very glad to see that. But I really want to make sure that we have, really strong, viable candidates in all seats. Because the reason why we've held so strong in this county is because the school board has really not been impacted. And we get hit with a lot of political questions. Most recently, we went ahead and did the LGBTQ month, which, is personally very important to me. But the whole board stands strong on these things, and it's not even a question. And I think when you have a board that stands up, we get a couple of people coming in to complain, but you're not getting what's happening in Miami-Dade, what's happening throughout the rest of the state, where there's, hundreds of people filing in, trying to change the minds of the board because they don't have a foothold here in Palm Beach County. Now, could they get one? So easily. 3 seats is a lot. So if they really move some, that needle on the board, I'm personally nervous about what it means, because I think the Democrats have been the stabilizing force in schools and in the state of Florida. So, we have lost many other places. And so the things that I'm going to talk to you about today are really a reflection of the fact that in the state government in Florida, we don't have any control. I mean, we've got a few strong Democratic senators that do their best, and they fight hard for us, but it is difficult. It's very difficult. So we win where we can. And then what I always tell people is the way that the school board in Palm Beach County works is they send us their bills, and then we do our best to protect the kids and the staff. And that's what we do. And I think we've done a really good job over the last few years, but it's always going to get harder. Okay, so I'm going to talk about our state legislative priorities. If you're interested, this is obviously available on our website, and I can send it to you all if you want to talk about it. The first thing I'll talk about is really the whole thing that we ask for every year is funding. It's always funding. It always comes back to funding. Funding for teachers, funding for safety and security, funding for mental health. So it is very difficult in Florida to fund education. We are 47th in the country as far as education funding. That means we get about $8,000 per student. There's a little bit of additional funds when you talk about IDEA funds and, additional funds for people who are, have disabilities within the school system. So we get additional funds for those students. But overall, it's about $8,000 a student. Luckily, in Palm Beach County, we have had the opportunity to ask the voters, and thank God the voters have come back every time with a yes, for additional funds to be able to fund different projects within the school. So again, mental health, safety and security, and our teacher pay, which is huge. So we actually do give extra funding to our teachers. So we've given the biggest raise in the state of Florida this year. We're very, very proud of that. We actually are just now settling with our other groups as well, and those are fairly good raises as well. The teachers are a little higher this year. And then we take the additional funds from the referendum dollars that you guys pay through your property taxes, and those funds actually go to giving teachers who've been with us for 10 years an extra $10,000, 5 years, $5,000, and 1 year, $1,000. So like an extra supplement within their check, but that only exists as long as those taxes are in place. So we just got renewed for that a year ago. We're doing fairly well to be able to hang on to that. So that's been really, really good. So we do the best we can for teacher pay, and we've done really well. Other communities are really, they're either skipping raises or doing itty bitty raises. And one of the things that I know, being a mom with 2 kids, I make what a starting teacher makes. That's what the school board gets, and I don't have another job. So like, I understand that as well. And so I'm always up there really arguing for how can we give more to the teachers, to our staff members, because Palm Beach County is ridiculously expensive right now. Like I honestly don't even know how a normal person pulls it off on a day-to-day basis. I'm lucky that I bought my house, 15 years ago. So it's like we're still in a decent place. And when we have a new teacher moving to the community, or a new bus driver, or a school food service worker, or any of these people, where do they live and how do they afford that? So we're looking into always trying to figure out ways we can add so that we have opportunities. So I do a lot of work with housing and hunger and homelessness in our community, because they all really they affect our staff too, and our families, our students. That's a big part of it. So one of the things that happened last year that was pretty scary when it comes to funding was HB1. So if you guys remember, that probably is the voucher bill. So our voucher program, we've always had ways in Palm Beach County and throughout the state where a student could decide that they were, their parents said they don't want to go to public school and they want to participate in a private school. And then they could get the funds that we have set aside for them when they come to us, and they could take it to a private school. It just used to be really, really difficult to do. You had to fill out paperwork, you had to justify how much money you made, all of that. That's all gone with HB1. What that did is it basically opened the floodgates and said, anybody who wants to go to a private school or a homeschool, you can get your funds and you can just have them sent to you. So I have a really, really good friend whose daughter goes to Benjamin, and she does not need the money. But I said, hey, you should apply for this, because why not? I think this is a big question about like your politics. And I think everybody in the room, we all have this similar politics, but it's about the self versus the community. And so when you talk about what's good for you, it might be good for you, but it's not good for your neighbors to have that happen. So I think that's the situation with HB1 and with the voucher program, is that for an individual family, it's lovely to get a check for $8,000. I want a check for $8,000. I'm sure you do too. But when you talk about education as a whole, it's very detrimental for the system to have all of these kids that were previously in private schools paying for it on their own, now suddenly asking for $8,000 each. So what we found out from doing the math on this is that if every student in the state of Florida decided that they wanted to participate in the vouchers, it would cost the state of Florida $4 billion from our educational coffers. A lot of money per year. So luckily this year, the state set aside a pot of money, $400 million, to pay for these vouchers. So what our position at the school board has been is that, state, can you please continue to put aside that money and not have it impact school board budgets? Because when we have, right now they do this thing where they'll take the funds and they will guess how many students are going to be in the state of Florida, and then they allocate those to us, like kind of in their minds. And then when they find out how many students come, if there's not enough money to go around, they prorate our share. So they'll actually reduce the funds. So hypothetically, you see you have $8,000, maybe now you're getting $7,900 per student. And that little bit of taking away then impacts our budgets to the tune of millions. So we're asking them to please don't do that. And when you're setting aside funds at the state level, account for these vouchers and account for the idea that this is now going into year 2 of the vouchers, right? So we're in our first year right now, but they're planning for next year's vouchers. More private schools are going to say, yes, we'll take those dollars. And more private schools means more students, means more people are going to pull all this money. So it's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So as long as the state continues to allocate funds that don't pull from public schools, we'll be okay. But if they don't, it's nerve-wracking. And in Palm Beach County, we actually did see a growth of students this year, not a lot, but we actually aren't doing bad. And it's because we're really trying to compete on that market level, which is what the state says they wanted. They wanted to see us compete, which we do. We're really a good system, and so we do very well with that. But it is scary. So that's one of our issues that we put out there. Another thing we asked for was funding for safety and security. We get some funds from the state for safety and security. Those funds are not enough. And luckily we have our referendum. And so we supplement. Also, we are required post Stoneman Douglas to have a police officer in every school. I like having a police officer in every school. We actually have multiple police officers in our bigger schools, but that's not fully funded. So we need to be able to get that funds from the state and then take our referendum dollars and put it in, or pull from the general fund to pay for this. And it really isn't, it isn't, it's not something that the state helps us enough with. So we asked for that. Same thing with mental health. We get some funds from the state for mental health. We don't get enough. We don't get enough to cover our bill. We put a behavioral health professional, which is like our mental health person, in every school. Those funds that we get in the schools, we do get some funds from the state. The rest comes from a referendum. We're asking them to fully fund that. They don't do it now. So those are some of the questions we're having. And then there's this past year, we just recently, you guys may have heard in the paper or in the news, we added metal detectors to our schools. We've done 4 so far. We did it as a pilot program because it's a huge system, and I never think we should ever not pilot things, because we always find problems, and we can fix them, and maybe it's not the right program or it's not done the right way. One of the things we learned from our pilot was that we really need to assign staff to watch the metal detectors. So the metal detectors are not like, they're not like TSA metal detectors. They're more like you went into Kohl's metal detectors, like they're just those things you can just walk right through. They're like standing up on the side, but they're not, they just beep if something happens, but people can just keep going through. So we can move the kids through really quickly, but it still takes time in the morning to get the kids through. So in those 4 schools, we had to allocate additional funds to pay our staff members to come in a little early, which some of them want to do, and they monitor the schools when they go through. And that way it doesn't slow the process down, but it just catches if they have a large metal object of some kind. And then if that happens, they get pulled aside, and then they'll look in their backpacks and double check and see what's happening. So we asked the state to help fund our metal detectors because they're very expensive and we're paying for those. We also pay for a program called Centegix, which you may have heard about as well. It's like a button, it's like a panic button that all of our adults wear. That was an original cost of $2 million. It's an ongoing cost every year of $1 million. And then this year we had to upgrade our system, even though we just got it. We had to expand some of our Wi-Fi capability for it. That was like $400,000. So everything we do is these huge price tags. So we asked for safety and security funds to go along with that. Do you guys have questions about those funds? Anybody? I don't want to just talk and talk without offering up options for questions.
Question about the voucher money.
Go ahead.
I had heard at some point that people who wanted to homeschool their kids would get their $7,000 or $8,000 they could spend on TVs or essentially anything they wanted to.
Anything.
Is that?
Yep. True story. Yes, they can spend it on anything that they want. They call it educational. You can get a kayak. You can get whatever you want. It's a very open program, and so I feel like with the homeschool kids, it's a little scary for us because we worry about how they're going to spend these funds and if it's truly going to go to the education of their student, because we are spending those funds on education, on teachers, on facilities, on curriculum, on truly educating students, making sure they get what they need. There's no monitoring really, and that so many things are up for grabs, but that is the case. The homeschool students are definitely applying for it.
Is there, any accountability, any tests at the end of the year,
they have to request it. So there is a little bit there, and they need to, be enrolled in something, but very little, unfortunately.
May I speak?
Sure.
Please. My background is special ed. I spent many, many years doing it in New York, and then later on teaching students at FAU.
Mm-hmm.
And I recall a time back in the 1970s when 94-142, now called IDEA, came into being.
Mm-hmm.
And it made sure that every child was entitled to free and appropriate public education. So when you had a child who needed speech or adaptive phys ed or counseling, it was put on the IEP and it became the law. When budgets are cut, my biggest concern is that those IEPs will reflect the need of the school rather than the need of the child. Because how many speech teachers can you have? How many counselors can you have? What happens when you have a child who is asthmatic and needs a nurse? I'd like to know what's going to happen. And before you answer the question, and I have to say something that happened in my own experience professionally, being called down to Board of Education at headquarters in the 1970s to defend the system that wasn't working. Because based on those impartial hearings, many students were given funds for private schools. And that also came out of district money. I'm concerned with all those issues.
Sorry, we're having a 3-year-old crisis here.
That's okay.
And unfortunately, I'm home alone with her. I'm just looking at her going, yep, go to the bathroom, please. I think, you're right. We are always asking for additional funds. We actually do a pretty good job with our IDEA funds here. We have a lot of requirements and a lot of accountability over it. So we have mandates on the amount of time it takes for us to make sure we've given kids evaluations, making sure they're getting the services they need. We get sued about this a lot. We're always having people come to us and saying that this isn't enough. And we as a board, we're very adamant that we want to see the services go to the kids and that nobody's being left behind. But like you said, it's a big system. How many people can we have? A lot of times it's kind of reactionary. When something bad happens, we try not to make it reactionary. We try to be as proactive as we can. And I really do love our ESE director. He's quite good. Very, very smart, knows his stuff. So it's just about getting...
McCormick?
Yeah.
McCormick?
Yeah,
I've met him.
McCormick.
Yeah,
He's very good.
I like him very much.
Yeah, and we're very lucky to have him in that position. And we have a lot of very smart people working there, but it's a huge system, and there's kids have more needs than ever. So, sometimes it takes parental advocacy, and I wouldn't take that away from the parent.
Mm-hmm.
They need to be able to come in and argue and talk and tell people what they need. And then we have additional advocacy from outside organizations. So I know Irene keeps asking me a couple questions about the homeschool kids. So are the homeschool children assessed on their knowledge gains? I think so. I'm really not that aware of what happens with the homeschool students. So not totally sure I can answer your question. And as far as the accountability with the funds, I know you asked me that question as well. I think it's very little. I'm not totally sure what it is. I could find out for you guys though and get back to you about it. It's not, it's definitely not my wheelhouse to be in the homeschool arena, unfortunately.
Steve?
You want me to carry on with the talk, or do you have other questions?
I have a question if I could.
Sure.
When Ronnie DeSantis decided to announce that he was fining the school systems of Florida $200 million for protecting their kids, did that impact Palm Beach County? And if so, how much?
It didn't go through. It didn't happen. He just threatened and threatened and threatened, but luckily it hasn't happened. I would say that, it may not have impacted us financially, but I do think that there was an emotional impact on that. And I think it really has been, it's just crazy to think about that your governor wouldn't let you have that kind of control. So I think one of the things that I am frustrated with when I talk to, when I see what's going on in Tallahassee, is the idea that they take away our ability to make decisions as a board. Kind of the home rule question, should we have local control or should it go to the state? And so I think when you see, the governor and the legislature making these rules, what they're doing is they're saying, school boards, you can't handle this. We're going to take that control away from you. And that's what it feels like to me. It's very frustrating. Like, here's a good example that's on our list of legislative priorities that I think is crazy. So if you imagine a fire drill, what happens in a fire drill? You have somebody pulls an alarm and everybody runs outside. That's what we do. And we've done it for years and years and years. Well, when you talk about an active assailant drill, that is a different situation. That somebody's there and they may want to shoot people in the school. And so when that drill happens, or when that actually happens, you lock down in place, right? So what if an active assailant is on the campus and pulls the fire alarm? Now they've made everybody run outside and then you could shoot them, right? So that is kind of a state decision. They decide how we do this process, and we know it's a problem and we can't do anything to fix it. So we are asking Tallahassee to please fix your procedures for fire drills and active assailant drills so that we don't pull a fire alarm and send a bunch of kids outside to go get shot by somebody who's out there ready to shoot them. Does that make sense? So it's like these two things don't work, but we know, and now we can't make this change but for a year while we work to figure this out, talk to the state legislature. Hopefully they do it. But the process to fix things when you're that far away is really long, and it's a problem. Oh, and speaking of, I want to tie back to the vouchers really quickly. So one bonus of the voucher program is that when they did all this stuff, remember we talked about private schools not really having the same regulations. Charter schools have less than us. Private schools have like none. Like they really aren't held accountable to much of a level at all. Adding, if they decide to accept the vouchers, they do get a tiny bit of accountability, but very little. Some of the private schools in the area decided not to accept vouchers, like St. Andrews wasn't accepting them this year because they didn't want any accountability. They didn't want the state getting involved in any of what they were doing. So they weren't going to accept the money. But, you know, like Benjamin did, many of the private schools did, and I think you'll see more next year do it. But when they did that, they were saying, well, private schools can go ahead and do a great job and take these students. Well, we said as school boards that we can't, you know, we have so many more rules than they do. I mean, tons and tons of reporting that has to be done and all these things. So what just came out this past week, they actually did a survey to all the school boards and superintendents and said, what rules would you like us to get rid of for you to make it a little easier? It's called the deregulation bill. And so now it is HB 7002, and I think 704 and 7000, but 7002. It has a few things that school boards put together, and they are doing deregulation. So this should make it easier for us to do our jobs and put us on a semi-closer playing field to private schools that now have you know, state dollars associated with them. And remember, one of the biggest issues with private schools is they can do religious education, they can do basically anything that they want with these dollars. There's no accountability on that part. But some of the things that have been taken into consideration with the deregulation bill, I actually kind of like them. Some of them are great. So they're taking away a lot of our reporting requirements, not like a ton, but some, to make it a little bit easier. They're giving us more flexibility around federal funds. They're allowing us to do electronic notifications instead of paper. That's been a long time coming. They're allowing us to decide whether or not to make up days or not. There's been a lot of really solid restrictions on that. They've controlled our property that we have, school district property. If we were going to get rid of it, we'd have to offer it to a charter school first. They're not going to make us do that, supposedly, if this goes through. We're allowed to have kids. We already passed this internally due to a thing last week or a couple weeks ago, but where the kids can maybe carry ibuprofen on them, and they're talking about other medical supplies, maybe make it a little easier for them to do that. Let's see, there's a couple other ones in here. Oh, when we do construction, we have a lot of rules about how much space we can give per child. So we say, okay, you're one human, you get 10 square feet of cafeteria space, or 1 square foot of cafeteria space. And then it's like how many students are going to be there, and we're going to give you, you know, because we just built Joaquin Garcia, so I got to see this in action. They've like made it so that if you like, there's only so many square feet of hallway space, so many square feet of administrative space, classroom space, cafeteria space. It's all allocated based on a per student basis. And so they're willing to give some construction flexibility, which would be awesome, so that you can do things like that. They're letting us do a little bit more planning. We do a lot of reactive construction, which is awful. Our construction is like, oh my goodness, there's way too many kids in the school. Let's try to build a building. And then, you know, we smush everybody in for a few years until we can get this building built. They're talking about letting us have a little bit more time in the planning process for that. So there's some things in the deregulation bill that may impact school boards and make it a little bit easier for schools to function. And, you know, every time we get a rule that doesn't come with any money, it's more onerous on the staff, and then we have to put more money into staff, and then it takes away money from students. So hopefully this will make it so we can continue to put more money into the classroom where it belongs.
Erica, we have one
Yes.
question in the room here. Shirley?
Go ahead.
Erica, Shirley Johnson, how are you?
Hi. Good.
I'd like to ask a question about the charter schools.
Sure.
Who authorizes them? You've got all these rules and regulations. There used to be thought, I don't know if it's true or not, that a charter school could open, maybe exist for a couple of years if that. And then if they fail, the children are back in the public schools and may or may not be at grade level. It puts an impact on what the schools, the public schools, are required to do for their students. It's difficult to take a student rather, sorry, who may be 2 years behind because the charter school was not up to the qualifications that it should in performance. Is anyone addressing that problem? Is it on the local level? I doubt if it's on the state level.
So let me just start off by saying we're in less of a fight with charter schools than we used to be. I think because our problems have gotten bigger, truthfully. So we're not fighting on the level that we were. We did actually put into our legislative priorities a piece about the charter schools related to the fact that if you remember a few years ago, we weren't trying to authorize anymore. We were like, no, we don't want to authorize any more charter schools. Thank you. We appreciate you coming. Please don't come back. That was sort of the way that we were addressing them. And the state didn't like it. And so what they would do is they would petition the state to override our decision. So if we said no, which we tried, I mean, your school board tried. A lot of the same people are still there. We tried to stop it because they were just creating them everywhere, and they still are. But they would go to the state, they would override our decision. The state board of ed would always approve the charter school no matter what was going on with it, and then we'd be stuck with the charter school anyway. So because they did that, now when a charter school comes before us, we don't put up a fight at all because there's really no point, because they'll just go to the state. So as long as they're doing all of the things that they should do to become a charter school. And we do have a department that oversees it. So they check their financing, they make sure they have a building, they make sure they have a curriculum. So there are some oversight to get authorized as a charter school. So we're just, we approve them when they've gone through all the steps, because we know that if they meet the rules, then we have to. But the state in that process decided to create an authorizing organization that's actually located in Miami, which shows you like the charter school, like that's a place where charter schools are really welcomed. They created an authorizing oversight group. So a charter that wants to come into Palm Beach County can choose if they want to go to that organization or to us to be approved. They can go to either one. What we're asking for within our legislative priorities is that if you authorize a charter school, you should be in charge of their oversight, not us. So that would make it, if we want to say, you should go to the state board, then they can be in charge of them. Because as you said, we have had some bad experiences in the past where a charter school has completely failed children. This has happened, I think I'm going to say 3 or 4 times since I've been on the board, where and some of them have been egregious, where they've failed the kids. The schools are failing. They have to fail multiple times in a row to be able to be closed. We will close them. And then all of the students have to find somewhere to go. And the options are, they can find another charter, or they go to their local public school, and then they show up to us. And in many cases, they show up not ready to be on the grade level that they're supposed to be on. So it does end up costing us more time and effort, and it can be frustrating. But honestly, it's low on my priorities of issues anymore. I mean, when I first got on the board, it was something I thought about all the time. But I think we're in a decent place. One of the frustrations I have with them right now is, remember when we went to you all, and I remember this very specifically for the referendum the first time, and we said we weren't going to share the funds with the charter schools. Well, they sued us about that, and they won, and they've won, and they've won, and they've won. They've won so many times. So they won on go forward money, and they've won on back money. And so we've had to send millions to the charter schools to make up for that, because so many judges said that we were not in the right. I felt like it was is what the community wanted and what they voted for. And so to me, that is what we should be doing. But we have lost that fight. So I think it's kind of taken a little bit of the wind out of our sails on these things, unfortunately. But it's the state we live in. And so I know somebody had a question about private school quality.
I'm June.
Hi.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, I hear you fine.
Okay. Just to go back to first of all, thank you so much for being here tonight. This is so important, and you should receive applause for going through this for 9 years. It's amazing, and I mean that. But getting back to what somebody asked about oversight, I've done a lot of research. I'm not on the board, but some of these people know I've written. I wrote to you about it. A lot of research on this. Excuse me. The so-called private schools, they're not licensed, approved, accredited, or regulated in any way by the Board of Education. They're free to do basically what they want. Nobody tests an achievement level, for example, for reading, writing, standardized math, or anything of that sort. You can tell I'm very much opposed to all of this, number one. And I think people need to know that your tax dollars, and they still are, even though we convert money from donations, are going to pay for this. And my second issue is when people hear private schools, I don't really understand why they want to send their kids there. Simply because a good private school runs, and I've checked this very carefully, from $40,000 to $60,000 a year. And we do have some of those in Florida. Most of those you see in other parts of the country. But a school that accepts $8,000 in the form of a voucher for a private school is no place I'd ever send my kids. And if any of you have ever read the newspaper articles, for example, the team of reporters in the Orlando Sentinel that spent 3 years investigating these schools, taking photos and so forth, what they found are they're mostly religious schools that are preaching a very narrow version of Christianity. And what comes after that in terms of the academics is totally unacceptable. And that's what we're paying for, and it's expanding. And as you said, Erica, it's going to get bigger. And I take it very seriously.
I think that with this opportunity, what we're going to see is mom and pop private schools like showing up in the community, saying, I'll take your $8,000 and I'll educate your students.
Yeah, and we have them. And we already have them. I visited a couple too after the reporters told me where they were. It's despicable.
One was the worry. It's like we're not, and you don't know what you're getting. One of the things with the school board and with the school district is that with the scale that we have, there's a lot of accountability, a lot of resources, and when you think about the economies of scale, if you have a school with 3,500 kids, you can have one person that is an expert in physics on that campus to teach those kids that are in physics, and they're going to get a great education. It may not be every kid, but every kid has that access. Even really in all aspects of the school district, we can have psychologists that are well trained, and we do group trainings, and so things like that. We can do a better job because it is so large. Things that other communities can't do when they're tiny. And you talk about a private school, maybe they have 400 kids at max. That's a big private school, but a really small school community when you think about how big we are. So I think that's a big concern. And I think what the state is asking for is they want parents to vote with their feet, but most parents, even myself, who knows a lot about what's going on, I don't know what my kid is doing on a day-to-day basis. My 16-year-old, she's in chemistry. It's hard. I hear her complain about it. I know she's in algebra 2. She's doing good, but how do I know if I'm not there? Also, we have opportunities within our system for a wide range of students. And let me just say what I think is, like, when I envision a perfect school, I really think about what is it that makes that work well. And when you're in a huge system like this, I think the answer is balance. So you want not a lot of any one type of student, a high needs student or a gifted student or an average student. You want there to be a balance, because when you have, too many high needs students in a school, the burden of all of the education and everything goes on to them. And then maybe your gifted students or your average students aren't getting as much attention, and they're not getting as much resources, or the resource is shifted and unbalanced. So if the private schools are in our community start selecting all of the really talented students, and all we're left with is the high needs students, the balance of the school is gonna shift. And right now the system can take that, because we have such a huge system. But
Exactly.
if you see schools that
Yeah.
we lose all of the, all the kids with the, high parent impact and input, if we lose all of them and we're only left with kids that are really high need, it's going to take with a lot of resources to make that happen. And so I think that's detrimental to the whole system. Also, I think it's not good when children aren't exposed to each other. That's just my societal, belief, that we all need to see each other and be exposed to each other and know the world that we live in. And so these small, insulated communities, I don't think do better. They're not good for us as a community in general. So this is just my personal belief system. But
Yeah, and one other thing I want to add to that too, the sad part of this is, beside the fact that so many of these schools aren't even schools, and I have no idea, again, why the parents would send there, and as you said, maybe they don't know what's going on, but there's absolutely no requirement in the law anywhere that these private, which are basically religious schools, have to give the kids the individualized programs that they get in the public school. Disabled children, and Jack was referring to this earlier, that nobody has to give them anything, and
well,
they
and
don't get anything.
if there's a child that's very high needs, they don't accept them and they send them back to us anyway. So we end up.
But if they're caught in between, like a reading disability, they just go there and get ignored. And I say it with authority because I've seen it. And the whole system stinks. I'm sorry, it really stinks.
Well, we're doing okay here,
disgrace.
but yeah, there's issues for
It's a
sure.
disgrace.
I
And we're
understand.
paying, there's supposed to be a separation of church and state.
Yeah, June,
These are our
June.
tax dollars.
June, I was just thinking that, the Supreme Court of the 50 years or so before 2000 would be horrified at the thought that you can give taxpayer money to schools that are teaching religion. I mean, it's just they talk about what the founders wanted. The founders didn't want that, but Scalia and the rest of them, that's what
Well,
Thank
and
you.
let me tell you about two items that mean absolutely nothing on our legislative platform that tie into philosophy around, just being here and human and alive. We did add two pieces. One is to ensure a process that all state standards are factual and historical. That nobody's going to care about that, but we put it in there. So this is your school board. We're trying, and we have made a commitment in our school district. We're not teaching from PragerU. It's a curriculum that we think is highly terrible. So that is something that doesn't happen in Palm Beach County, but it is approved at the state level and could be taught anywhere in the state. And you remember the conversations around whether or not slavery was good for slaves. So we've made sure that that's not happening in Palm Beach County. There's
a problem with teaching facts because facts are liberal. I mean, if you teach facts,
I mean, they're supposed to be just facts, but yeah, that's an issue. And then the other
Alternative facts.
The other thing we added in there that nobody cares about is opposing any new legislation or new requirements that adversely impact students because of gender identity, religion, race, or ethnicity. We'll keep fighting for that here in Palm Beach County. I hope that clearer minds are going to prevail at some point, but right now that's not going well. The other thing that the state has really been doing that I think you're going to see a real impact of this year is we have a really good graduation rate here in Palm Beach County. Eventually we, depending on how the student, what kind of student you have and how they're getting through, it can be very difficult to get through the standardized tests that are set up by the state. We just got another new one this past year. We now have the FAST test based on the best curriculum. It's called the best standards. It's painful. But so with these new tests, it can be very difficult for an immigrant student, a student who doesn't speak English, things like that. So we've been able to use SATs and SATs, which are nationally standard, nationally normed tests that we can use to then help pass students. And it's called concordant scores. So it means that if you do well on this part of a SAT or an ACT, we can take that score and then we can apply it to your ability to graduate. Does that make sense? So you don't have to do the state standardized test. You can do the nationally normed test, SAT, ACT. Well, the state said it's going to be really we want to improve the quality of education in Florida. So they raised what the concordance score has to be on those tests in order to, they say they want to make it a higher quality education. You won't get a diploma if you didn't get to this level. Some of our students, very difficult to get to the level that was already at. So this year we are going to have to accept, I think, where the concordance scores actually leave us. And we think our graduation rate is going to be really, really impacted and may go down 10 points or more. So I think you may see that. This is why. We are doing everything we can to try to stop that. And we did put it in our legislative platform to hold us harmless from concordance scores again. They did it last year because they saw the impact was going to be so great. And I think the governor, he's running on this pro-education standpoint, and the entire state has a dip in graduation rates. It would look terrible. So they let us go for another year, but I think it's done this year. So that's what we asked for. It won't matter. But it says delay implementation of the concordance scores until they've been aligned to the current standards. So that was a request that we had. Does anybody have any questions about that? I know it's a little confusing, but no. Okay. So the other thing, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Irene.
No, I'm just saying it's disgraceful. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I mean, it's what does a high school diploma mean? It's access.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's an ability to go on and become an adult, get a job, things like that. So I want that for every kid in Palm Beach County. I want them.
Want it to have meaning.
Yeah. And it's I know we
Not
want
just
it to
keep
be
lowering standards so we can shove out a piece of paper. That's the issue.
but this is them actually making the standards higher
So
and making it impossible for kids to make it. So I don't know. I want kids to be able to graduate. And obviously we have alternate pathways. You can go into the trades, you can get a GED, you can go through adult education. We will help. But there's some kids, it's just, it's going to be difficult. So the other thing I really wanted to talk about is pre-K, because that's a huge passion for me. As I said, I have a 3-year-old and she's in pre-K in Palm Beach County and throughout the state. Public pre-K is not really the standard. We have public schools that have pre-K, but it's not every school. We try, but we can't do it all. The state has a very large contingent of private schools, and if we were to try to take them all over, that would become very politically not great for us and for the state. So, because there's so many people that they do private schools. So the Early Learning Coalition has been amazing. They are a state funded organization. It's a state level organization. We have our own chapter here in Palm Beach County. They are located in the Children's Services Council building. They have multiple buildings throughout the community. If you want pre-K for your kid, you can call them and they'll give you a list of where they are near you, where there's openings, people to call, things like that. So they're a very good organization. And I served on their board for a few years. I've been off for a year. One of the other board members took over. But while I was on it, we had a really good relationship with the director of early learning, and I connected him with our deputy superintendent, and we kind of discussed the importance of connecting our public schools with the private schools in the community, because when you have a student coming into public school, you really want them, or in our schools in general, we want to see them have this be ready for kindergarten. It's what we call it. It's actually a standard to be ready for kindergarten. And what we do is the first 2 weeks of school, every kindergartner gets a test to assess their readiness. It's called the Flickers test. It's a state test. And some kids do well and some kids don't. And in Palm Beach County, we have about, I think like 50% of the kids throughout the county that are considered ready for kindergarten when they enter, which means they either didn't participate in a preschool program that was a quality or didn't participate in one at all because they didn't get that education. So in preschool, you should be learning your letters and numbers. You should be able to like count to 20, do the whole alphabet, understand that an A is an ah sound, a B is a B sound, things like that. Raise your hand to go to the bathroom, understand that a book opens like this and you read left to right. So like a lot of really basic skills that they should learn before they get to kindergarten. And if they don't know any of those, they're not ready. So what we did in Palm Beach County to try to tackle this, which I just love, through the deputy superintendent and through our early learning coalition, is that we connected the dots between the kindergarten teachers and our preschool teachers, and we talked about what we want them to learn. So every elementary school has a connection with the preschools that feed into them, public or private, doesn't matter, and they have discussed with them and shared with them what we need them to know when they get there, which is huge. And then the other thing that we did is we did a whole marketing campaign around kindergarten this year. So if you know anybody who had a kindergartner going in, we put out a lot of information like, you know, come to your school, register for kindergarten. And if you come, we have a kindergarten readiness kit, which was actually very nice. I got one finally. It took me months, but I finally got my hands on one. I brought it home and got to do it with my 3-year-old. That they're one for letters and one for numbers, and they're activities that parents can do with their students, with their children at home to just kind of prep them so we can get a little bit of a better, better result on that Flickers test. And then the other thing we did is we did videos. I think there's like 12 videos that give you lessons that you can do with your students. So they're high quality, amazing kindergarten teachers, preschool teachers teaching the student how to get ready for kindergarten. And they did it in English and Spanish and Creole. So there's one for everyone. Send it out to everyone. This year, just after the beginning of this program, we actually saw overall a 3% increase in kindergarten readiness just from this huge impact. So now that we've seen some outcomes, like we're all excited, and we're going to do more of this upcoming year. So you'll see more of a focus on that. But as far as our legislative priorities, and this is a drum I have been beating for every year I've been on the board, is please, please, please pay for a full day of VPK for our students. Right now, the state only pays for 3 hours, which is lovely if you're a stay-at-home mom, and then you can, be gone for 3 hours and come back at noon. But not everybody's that, and not everybody has the ability to be picked up at noon. So that means you have to pay for your student to stay for extended day. And there are programs that let you do it through CSC, and there's a few different options in the community where they will get you funding to be able to stay later, but you have to fill out the paperwork and understand where the programs are. And again, that limits who can do it. So we're just asking the state, treat VPK like you do kindergarten, where you just show up, sign up, and you're there all day and you get to stay the full day. So that would be ideal. So we've asked for paying for a full day of VPK for years and years and years. I'm hopeful that maybe they'll see their way around extending it, but right now it's just 3 hours, and that's all we get. And so the CSC, Children's Services Council, really does make up a lot of that space and make sure some kids get in. But like my preschool that my daughter goes to is $1,000 a month, and I only have her until 2:30. I don't even have a full day. So when you talk about the expense of this community and, being able to live here in Palm Beach County, there's families, they just cannot afford that. And there's just no getting around that. And if you want these children to be educated as a state, we need to take it on as a priority. And many states throughout the nation are paying for it. We would not be the first, we might be closer to the last. So we really need to be able to pay for 4-year-olds to be in school. I'd actually like to make 3-year-olds be paid for too, because I think we should start at 3 with quality care, because parents got to go to work anyway. So if they're not there, and if you're home with your kids, great, be home with your kids. It's not a mandate, but if you want to be there, let's see. I just got one from Irene. What direction this is going? What are you talking about?
Yes,
with
hi. Is it okay that I unmuted myself?
Please go.
Hi, I'm a certified tutor, my third year back, and I'm helping out a particular school in Boynton Beach. And I've noticed that the teachers have reduced their classroom libraries because they want to protect their jobs, regardless of whether they scanned them in their last year and they were on the list to be. No, they just are, some of them are fearful and they've minimized the libraries. As a retired teacher, I always valued the classroom library I had. I had it separated by genres. The students were able to go and choose and pick because they only went to the media center once a week. Parents didn't always bring them to the public libraries. And I valued the collection of books I had. And that seems to be a problem. It's dwindling. It's making teachers nervous. So I'd like to know what direction this is going in and how the school board can help teachers deal with this, because we feel a loss of control, it's dignity, it's trusting teachers to know what's best at that particular, for that level of what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. And I just, it's disturbing. I'd appreciate the
I would,
comment on it.
just agree with you on it. If you were a teacher, obviously, I mean, if I was a teacher, I'd be worried. Wouldn't you be terrified that somebody's going to come and complain about something in your classroom? So we've done so much to try to help with this. First of all, we've told teachers we'll stand behind them as long as you're putting the books that have been approved in your rooms. Like we're going to give you really clear expectations. What's happened that's really hard is that we've had to train all the media center specialists to review everything. And because teachers are nervous, they want everything reviewed because they're afraid to put anything out there. And so what it's done is it's overburdened our media center specialists. And so now we've had to try to work to make sure. So if ideal situation is something's been reviewed at school A, school B shouldn't have to also review it. It should be done. Like we've reviewed this, it's good, right? We know this is okay, but some teachers have lesson plans they want that they've had for years. They want those reviewed. Yes, you're right about the classroom libraries. What is really good is we didn't actually throw away all the classroom libraries, and we've actually gone through and done the scanning process, and we put a lot of time and effort into trying to hang on to these books, and we put some funds into helping the teachers. They didn't get as much as they needed to, but one of the things we asked for last summer when we went through this nightmare was please review all your books, and you have to scan them all. It takes a lot of time, so we had to put in additional funds for them to get an
3
extra
hours.
Yeah, it wasn't enough, but it was something. Something. It's better than nothing, right? So we tried. But it was something we did talk to the superintendent about, because this is just, it's horrible. So I know this is a real impact on the teachers, and I totally respect them being afraid, because I would be afraid too. And I have my moments too here in this job. We go, oh my God, what have we done? Let's never do anything wrong. But we really haven't had very many problems in Palm Beach County, knock on wood. It's, we've been doing okay, and we really address this on a moment by moment decision. But I would just say this is why elections are so important, because we don't have the ability to stop things like this at the state. So like, with a governor that is running for president, and a House and a Senate that are overwhelmingly aligned with him and with radical groups, this is what happens. So we'll do everything we can here. We have vowed to protect our teachers. I want them to feel supported, but it is very real.
It's very frustrating, and it's very difficult on them. And I, as a retired teacher who's still working for the county on a very part-time basis, I had a need to express my feelings and what I see, and I feel very badly for the teachers.
Well, I mean, this is why we got to get people out to vote. Like, honestly, this state does not feel the way that our government feels. Like, the people in government don't represent our state, in my mind. And so, we'll hang in there and we'll keep going. But it is scary.
Well, thank you very much for supporting us. And, hang
We will
on with us.
For sure, absolutely. Do you guys have any other questions?
I don't see any in the room. Yeah, there's one in the back. Okay.
Hi, Erica, it's Harley News Station.
Hi,
Hi. On the other side, less than 10 days ago, the Board of Governors of the 12 university public system have underscored and endorsed SB 266, DeSantis's removal of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and all that implies. They went even further. And I was just reading this, and it's in total violation of the freedom of expression. And they went to define what social activities would be not allowed, and what political activities would not be allowed if it was certain names. So even the freedom to assemble is just straight out on these 12 campuses, and they and this is what they ruled a few days ago for the university systems of public.
So I do think it's worse to be in a university in Florida than it is to be a public school in Florida right now. I don't know how long that'll last, that is the worst area. They'll probably come back for us, but we actually did cut out all our diversity and equity trainings. They don't happen in Palm Beach County anymore. We can't. That we will be in so much trouble. So we don't do it. We rely on partners and people being independently interested in it. We do still have an office of equity. Keith Oswald is in charge of our equity and wellness office. He does a fabulous job. I still really believe in equity. I would never stop. It, I think, makes so much sense for just really a school district and really any organization to make sure that you're providing the same service to students and to staff that you would for anybody, no matter who they are, or you provide them what they need when they need it, which is really the best version of equity. So, you know, we're doing what we can, but that, you know, it's disheartening to say the least. I don't know. I don't even know what to say. It's just very sad. I do have a little bit of information about the federal stuff, if you want me to talk about that, because it's super depressing as well.
Thank you.
All right, I'll just mention it quickly. So this past week, we were fortunate that the government decided to stay open. We were very worried. As you know, we have 8 people at the federal level that are trying to stop everything from happening. So one of the things that they have decided, actually, there's a few things they've decided. One of the things they're fighting most on is education. They want to see us cut out Title I, Title II, and Title III funds. So those are funds that we get from the federal government to provide for those high need schools. When you're talking about children who are in really low poverty schools, like low socioeconomic statuses, those schools get extra money. The principals that I talk to love being in Title I because they're getting funds to be able to really deal with the needs that those kids come in, and they can actually spend that money in many ways. It really balances the system. It is a big equity driver. That's a part of it. And so the federal government wants to cut, they actually really want to get rid of the Department of Education completely and get rid of these additional funds that we have. So that would be devastating. The other thing that really bothers me, as I said, I work a lot on hunger and homelessness and things like that. That's like my passion area. And they have threatened to cut WIC funding. So if you know WIC funding, it's pregnant moms, infants, and children up to age 5 that can get additional food, access to formula, access to, you know, fresh fruits and vegetables, things like that. So those programs are also being considered. The government has given us until February now. They're putting off defunding the government until then, but these programs are vital for children. And when I talk about preschool kids and, you know, readiness for kindergarten, we're talking about brain development and the importance of people having the food that they need when they need it. and you know, cutting those federal programs is really tough. We're always trying to expand them. I would love to see them be bigger. You know, we want to see SNAP exist and things like that. So anyway, so the federal government has decided to continue working until February, and but then we'll see where we go from there. But this, I think it's really important that you all just at least know that this is a possibility that has been discussed at the federal level. And, you know, it's funding for, hold on, I'll tell you all the funding. So Title II is funding to support effective instruction. Title III supports English language learners. So the kids that come in that don't speak English yet, all the work that we do around that. They want to cut $300 million to school mental health services, which is terrible. And all of this is in HR 5894. So just so you know, the House bill at the federal level. So, you know, we're kind of getting it from all sides here, but I think this is when advocacy, your advocacy is really important is, you know, I think Florida has it extra hard because we have such a tough state as far as funding goes, but we have to really be cognizant of the federal level as well. So that is pretty much all I brought to talk about today. If you want to talk about anything else though, I'm open to anything.
Yeah.
I'd like to talk about
Nick? Oh, Ryan, sorry. Yeah.
I'm only gonna ask this question because I want you to end on something uplifting. Erica, this is Ryan Boylston, by the way.
Ryan Boylston.
Your new marketing for recruiting new teachers statewide, I think that launched a month or two ago. Can you just tell us a little bit about that initiative?
But can you be more specific? Because I'm not totally sure I know which one. Like just telling people that
I
we're
watch the news in the morning. I see commercials for become an educator. Not actually, it's not just an educator. It's
Good.
come work for the school district, and I
Yeah.
can't remember ever seeing commercials.
So this is like, I mean, this is key, right? So when we talk about teachers and mental health professionals, bus drivers, there's really not enough of these humans to go around in our school system. So we have to make more. So we are and recruit everyone we possibly can. And I think Palm Beach County is a great place to work. Actually, I was just talking to a nurse today at a doctor's appointment. I was recruiting her to send her children to Palm Beach County schools because we get all next week off. And that's one of the benefits of working for Palm Beach County. We make sure to give Thanksgiving week off. And so teachers love it. And we pay better. I think we're a good place to work. We're trying our very best to be welcoming because we do realize the competition is steep. We've also asked the state as part of our legislative priorities, and actually just something that I've been driving everybody nuts about, how do we get more people to want to go into teaching profession? Can we work with them? Like if a student is ready to like graduate college and they don't really know what they want to be, like come be a teacher. We would love that to happen. So I think, you know, making sure that we have enough teachers is such a huge priority, and getting the best teachers into our system is a huge priority. And then we realized that marketing is a big piece of that. So with HB1 and people wanting to pull students and go to other places, we have to have the best product here. So we are marketing on every level we can. We hired a new communications director. This was a big part of her charge, is market the schools, market the programs, market the jobs, because we have to have people come in to work here. We're still low on everything. We could use more teachers. We could use more bus drivers. I think the only thing we're never low on is principals. Everybody wants to go into administration. So, but we want to make sure those people are quality too. And so, I don't know if that answers your question, but yes, we're very proud of our marketing and that we're finally doing it after so many years. We used to just be the default choice, you know, Palm Beach County schools, but now we want to be the one that we can pull everybody in.
You guys are doing a great job.
Yeah, no, and I was going to ask you what we can do to support you, and I think you answered that earlier. We need to get out and vote. I've got this t-shirt that says "We vote, we win." It's our club motto. And actually Charlie Crist at a breakfast saw it and pointed at me, said, I love that. Obama said that. And I said, no, I said that. Charlie is such such a mensch, such a decent human being, you know. And he said, no, 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 don't you remember Obama said, when we vote, we win, you know, and
Aw.
I remembered that, and that was probably in the back of my head, you know.
I would say not just
Charlie
vote, but
Crist, people did not come out for Charlie Crist. I mean, you know, and yeah, I don't know how many times it has to happen with George Bush, with Donald Trump, with Ronald Reagan, you know, and people either stay home or they're the Democratic candidate's not pure enough, or he's not, you know, he's not perfect enough, or we.
And I would say
There's
we
a
need
reason
people,
there's
we
the
need good people to
legislative-
run. We need to have a backlog of amazing people ready to step up to the plate for all these
But,
positions.
but even when they're not amazing, when you look at the other side, you know, I mean, how amazing do you have to be, you're not, I'm not a sociopath, vote for me, you know. Right.
But yes,
Nancy,
voting would be key. Voting, running, helping people, knocking on doors. I remember in my most recent campaign, I had what are they? I keep forgetting the Moms Demand Action. That group helped me campaign. I was so impressed with the way that they organized and they door knocked, and they were just so focused on their goal. And I was so impressed with them, and I thought, you guys can get anybody elected because they're so dedicated. And I was so grateful to see, you know, that I would go, and I did not door knock with them a few times, but I just kept saying, you guys are amazing to come out and help. But they were like, we're not messing this up. And I was like, that's what we have to do for all of these. Like, we just have to realize that we need to move and have action on this to get good people in.
Yeah.
And when we don't, we end up with this situation we're in, which is stressful.
yeah, it's the super majority against us.
And just to
Nancy?
circle back to what you said about the 3 seats that, you know, the 3 elections for school board this year. Yeah, I'm really concerned. You know, if it's anything like what happened last year.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we're in serious trouble, and I'm familiar with the race in Boca. Like, I think Robert Weinroth is running against her.
I heard he's not gonna stay
Oh,
though.
he's not? Did he decide not to?
I mean, so he hasn't pulled out officially, but there's a lot of rumors that he might not. And so obviously that is a question.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, I mean, I like the woman that's considering running as much as I've met her and had lunch with her, but
About her.
that's we have to have good people. Like,
Yeah,
we just have
in these races. I
Yeah.
mean, you guys are like our last bastion.
Yeah.
Democracy.
Yeah.
And it's so good. It's so good when we have people that just generally wanted to do the right thing and be there for kids, and we're all kind of mostly on the same page. I mean, we have our little moments of fighting with each other, but not like terrible. You know, everybody generally gets along, and we generally like each other, and we do well. So I feel like that's what we need. And it's so stable. Our board is so stable. You know, that's wonderful. So
I think we have one last question in the room. Are there any online? I can't see on Zoom if anyone has it. Okay. Steve, you get
Yes,
the last.
with the draconian restrictions and requirements passed in last year's legislative session. What are we doing to protect our Palm Beach children from the campaign for president of Ron DeSantis?
well, I'm just saying, since he's been
about-
running, less drama has happened. I actually kind of don't mind him running. As long as he doesn't.
I'm talking about the rules and
But just wait till he comes back.
I know, but it's been a really good couple months.
Having been humiliated, you know, on the national stage.
I'm talking about the restrictions that won't accept children's sexual orientations.
Oh, yeah, this is,
Won't allow the teaching of Black history. I mean, these are
Yeah.
ridiculous restrictions that are placed on the children of Florida in the name of Ron DeSantis's presidential campaign. What are we doing here to protect our children against those types of ridiculous regulations.
Well, honestly, this is where I think that the board has really stepped up. Personally, this is a huge issue for me, specifically, I mean, the
Well, for me
LGBT kids, they are all, I mean, if you look at the suicide rates and the intentions for suicidality, and then what's worse, oh my goodness, the thing that frustrated me last year so much, I did my master's in public health. I've been in public health for 20 years. I love public health. We have, ever since I was like in college originally, we have been doing the behavioral risk assessment survey and the youth risk behavior survey, which is basically like the youth risk behavior survey is administered to students in the school system. They hand out a survey. It has questions on it. How many fruits and vegetables do you have a day? How much exercise do you get? But there's a question about, you know, do you see yourself as you know, straight, gay, bisexual, transgender. Transgender just got added recently, but they threw the whole survey away. We have 20 years of data that shows what you know, like the tendencies of the community are, not just with sexuality, but with, I mean, so many things. So like, are they considering suicide? Like, has there been domestic violence in your home? Like, there's just so much stuff that's in there that's really like good data. And what DeSantis did this past year is they just threw the survey away. We don't do that survey anymore. And so all of the data that we have around our students is done. What they did is they created this other survey to replace it that is not remotely related to the first survey. So you can't use the data from 10 years ago and show any kind of a change because the survey is completely different. And it's going to have such a long-term impact on understanding what our problems are. So we've just done this horrible thing. This is me being public healthy, I'm sorry, but we did this horrible thing by making all of the LGBT kids feel suicidal and stressed and whatever. And then we decided to stop counting them. So now we don't count them anymore. And we don't ask them if they're going to be okay. And it's, I mean, it's horrible. And so we're going to just put away the data so we don't have to look at the problem. Doesn't make the problem go away. It just makes the counting not happen anymore. So I think what you're going to see is that it's just not going to be any, because what happens with the data is then it goes to fund programs to protect the kids, but we can't fund them because we can't prove that there's a need. So if there's no need, why do we need to do anything to protect our LGBT kids?
Address them legally. You can't even talk about it legally.
It's actually quite brilliant. If you're trying to like shut something down, this is a good way to do it.
About their feelings.
Yeah. Well, you can't.
One more quick question, if I may. Do you
Yep.
mind if I email you? I'd like to talk further about this.
Sure. Yeah, anytime.
Does Michael have your email address?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
And would you
Thank for
prefer
what you do.
your
Yeah, if you want to
school
ask me
board
something
one?
really political, maybe aim for my private email.
Yeah,
I'll put it in
that's
the
what
chat.
I'll give him that.
But you can always send my public email too. I'll put them both in here.
And thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for what you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. I love it. Thank you for letting me continue to do it.
You have one from June and one from Irene. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Then we can go away.
Yeah. June,
June, you want to ask that?
am I?
Me?
Yeah, you, okay. As per the pending lawsuit, A.B. Moody has stated that the Don't Say Gay law does not apply to libraries and hundreds of books were removed from them. Were they?
Yeah. but
So
they
in
removed
Palm
them
Beach,
anyway.
in Palm Beach County, all we did was we evaluated the books and we moved them to the right age if they needed to be moved according to the new law. So technically we haven't banned any books. We've rearranged their location. And then a couple of books were already, that when we looked at them, we realized that they were not appropriate even for the standards before. So we've done such a deep dive on these books that some of them did get taken out, but the ones that were taken out completely, you know, there were other reasons behind them, not really like a banning of a book. But other counties in the state have banned swaths of books. They just said,
Is
no,
it
no, no.
Erica? My
Mhm.
statement didn't go to the book banning in the classrooms. It's just the libraries. The statement in terms of this lawsuit, where even the authors of the books have sued because of their books being taken out of school libraries as
Mhm.
differentiated from the classrooms. And Moody said this quote, "Don't say gay law does not apply to the libraries. And when I asked Penn America if they knew whether these other counties, I know Palm Beach didn't do it, had put the books from the libraries back in, they said they cannot get an answer from the state.
Yeah,
And I can't
I really
either.
don't think
I
they
asked and
would.
I
I
can't
think
find it.
everyone's so scared. I don't think that they're gonna do it. And you're
Right.
seeing like other
But
counties
this
where
is
you've
illegal,
got,
is what I'm saying. What was taken out of the libraries.
and I hope there's lawsuits
separate
because I think the
legal
only hope
category.
we have is lawsuits. But I gotta tell you, the judges are not really on our side either.
I know,
So
absolutely.
I know this is like the impact of 20 years of
Right.
Republican leadership. It's not
Absolutely.
gone our way. So I mean, we just have to change it. Like if we could get like just the governor changed, we could veto things that were terrible, and it would change the look of the whole state.
Or the courts, the state court, the Supreme Court, 5 of the 6 justices DeSantis appointed, and Trump appointed 6 of the 11 judges on the 11th Circuit Federal Court of Appeals. So
Yeah.
even if you get good judges, and there are a couple of terrific judges in Tallahassee that have struck down Republican laws, then it goes up. I mean, the Amendment 4 lawsuit, the guy that wrote that, I forget his name now.
Walker.
What?
I think it's Walker, Judge Walker.
No, Walker's the other one. It was Hinkle. Yeah. Hinkle, I mean, it was it was the best opinion I've ever read. I mean, the first couple of paragraphs describe how it works, you know, and you can't register unless you pay your fines, and you don't know how much you have to pay because Florida can't tell you how much they have to pay, but they think that by 2026 they'll know the answer. That was the opening of it, and it was, and of course it went up to the Court of Appeals, and that was it.
That's where things gotta die.
You guys, I'm so sorry. I really need to go. My daughter is
Okay, yeah.
screaming and
Well,
needing.
thank you so
She
much,
needs to go to
Erica.
bed. We're past bedtime, but thank you guys so much. Thanks for allowing me to call in tonight. And honestly, I'm grateful for everything you guys do. It is crucially important. So thank you so much. Thank you for being here and listening and caring about our schools. And if you need anything, please call me and let me know. Okay.
Have a good night.
Bye, everyone. Have a good night. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
So,
Thank you.
so I should have at the beginning just introduced, there are 4 candidates here for 5. Okay, okay. So we have Ryan Boylston and Shirley Johnson both running for mayor. Nick Hoppola and Julie Casal running for seat 3. And who did I miss? Oh, Tennille. Oh, I didn't even see you, Tennille. Hi. Hey. Okay. So, well, yeah, I hope when we do our candidates night, it'll be well, actually, Sharon gave me some advice on monitoring it last year. But last year was an improvement over 3 years ago, so.
Let's get about a date, Michael.
Like January.
It's probably gonna be in January. However, we may do February because there's a good chance we're gonna have Robert Watson. Dr. Watson in January. Yeah. That'll be nice. So, okay. Yeah.
So that would be
thank-
like February 15th.
Yeah, I guess that's right. Yeah. I don't know if he's going to be able to make it, but
Right. That
you
would
know,
be quite the good.
oh, it would be a
really
cool
great.
coup.
Okay.
So
Ready?
Michael,
To talk about.
Michael,
what?
Do you know what he'll talk about?
I can tell you in a minute, but there was,
Okay.
Yeah.
Michael, it's Zach.
Oh, Jack, yeah. I was
Janet,
gonna say, Jack, yeah.
Janet wants to say something.
Yeah, I heard
Yeah.
from Robert again today. He's trying to rearrange his schedule because he kept asking me when it is, what time, so I'm hoping.
Okay.
So as soon as
Yeah,
I
no,
know, you'll know.
Janet is very, Janet and Jack both know him very well, which is why. And what he's going to talk about, we've had some meetings with him, just about messaging.
Mm.
You know, and I mean, everybody knows this, that Democrats suck at messaging, you know. I mean, now, yeah, they in Massachusetts, please don't start with that, you know. In Florida, you know, I mean, people think we're socialists, and I think that Marco Rubio's mama was a socialist, because she's on Social Security. And Rick Scott will be a socialist soon. He'll get on Medicare, you know. We don't.
That's kind of ironic.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's how do you define a socialist? I mean, the traditional definition is government control of the means of production. We don't have that, you know. Medicare is not socialism, but Medicare was called socialism. And Ronald Reagan said when he was shilling for the AMA, he said that we're all gonna, if it passes, we're gonna spend our sunset years on our porches telling our grandchildren what America was like when it was free. Okay. Yeah. So, but we don't, and I just saw that, what is it, Univision, one of the big Spanish television networks from Mexico that has big inroads in the Latino community, was bought by people that Jared Kushner is friendly with, and I mean, it's not bad enough already. They're going to be shilling for Donald Trump. So I mean, anyway, all right. So are we closing?
Michael, can I
David?
make an announcement?
Oh, yeah, sure. Ollie.
I wanted to just really push on the abortion access petition. We have only 6 weeks left and 2 holidays in there. We have to December 31st. We've been doing very well in Palm Beach County, but what's happened is I think maybe you all know this, that citizen initiatives need millions and millions of dollars to get over. Well, the 9 million that this campaign has had at the PF, it's gone. And so the onus is falling on us to get it, as volunteers, to get it over the finish line. And of the volunteers, 10% Florida-wide have been rejected. Many of it was that the signatures weren't matching. What I see, because I collect a lot, and every Friday carried, or I go up and deposit, deliver our petitions, is county gets confused with country, and we are not allowed to write on these to correct them.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks. I'll let them be lined. Let us get petitions. Now the percentage for the paid petitioners was 30%. The rejected, Lee County had 4,000 rejected, but apparently that's par for the course of these campaigns. All this means is please be creative in getting them signed, and they have to be Florida voters. For example, I went to see the movies of Del Rey, is run by some very progressive people. So I went to see the film Gilder, and I got there a half an hour early, and I had my clipboards, and I got 12. I got 12 petitions just like that. So whatever you can do for these next 6 weeks in between all our holidays, please collect them. and you can deposit them here, you can call me, I'll go anywhere for them. Thank you, and have a wonderful holiday. Stay, keep safe and healthy.
All right.
On that.
Yes, go right ahead.
Okay. Closing down.
What?
Did anyone talk about voter registration? or
Yes,
vote by mail?
I did already.
Okay, you did, and you talked to our hardworking
Of
voter
course,
registration.
of
director,
course.
Rebecca Yeager.
Of course.
Okay,
And
and
I,
just one last appeal, we have no locations in Delray Beach. So if anyone can help get locations in Delray Beach and especially help people get volunteers to man them, we'd really like to do that.
well, yeah, I mean, the volunteers have to be trained, you know, I don't know how many people in this room have been trained for, voter registration.
For voter registration here.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I probably forgot half of what I learned a year ago. Yeah. But,
Okay.
All right.
Really are.
yes, we are.
Bye, everybody.